Gainesville, The Villages, 1370 AM, 96.3 FM, The Source.
All right, 9 minutes after 10 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in. We live in an interesting time, and in a way, it saddens me that we are so divided. But in a way, it's the divide, the political divide. You know what was fun? The other day, I went to a concert here in Ocala. It was the Ocala Symphony Orchestra, and the conductor, Matthew Wardell, those of you who know Matthew, he said, everybody in here right now is just enjoying this, and it's so good to see all of you sitting here, because I know as soon as you get up and leave this this venue, you're all going to be fighting with each other because some of you are Republican, some of you are Democrat. And in a way, that is absolutely true. You know, we have for some reason, we've just reading what people say. Now, I don't really feel this in my own world, though. It's not like everybody is political, but on TV it is, and on radio it is, right? Everybody's like at each other's throat. So, and once in a while there'll be something like with the Kavanaugh confirmation fiasco a couple of weeks ago, right? There were those people who were showing contradictory statements about just about sexual inappropriateness. People who were defending Roman Polanski, for example, when he was going through his stuff, were the same people who were adamantly opposed to Kavanaugh because, you know what I mean? And so I think the hypocrisy is the thing you can see and maybe even are guilty of, and I'm not pointing fingers, I could be that way myself. So what happened? I mean, how did this all happen? CC Ferrari has, really an insightful book about this very topic. The book is called Trump, Divine Intervention or Not, but don't let the title fool you. It is really an interesting look at how we are sometimes contradicting things we've said and don't even realize that we're being influenced by the party that we relate to or identify with. That's the word I'm looking for. Cece is known as America's hottest thought-provoking speaker. How about that? She's a transformational speaker, a former Miami Metro-Dade police officer. She worked patrol and undercover. A megawatt radio personality. Oh, I like that. I'm reading, as you can tell. Cece Ferrari, it's good to have you back. Good morning, Cece.
Good morning. Glad to be back.
Where are you right now? You in Miami?
I'm in California.
What are you
Orange
doing?
County, California.
Oh, my gosh. Okay. And you moved out there. I think I remember that.
Yes.
So tell me what you are observing and give us a little bit of perspective on yourself. As a police officer, I mean, you must have a completely different view of some of these anti-police things you see, right?
Much, much different view. For example, when we had the situation happen with the Starbucks where the two black men were arrested, when I heard the story in the news, I didn't go to right away, oh my God, it's racism, because I have arrested people of all races for loitering. So I'm like, oh, okay, somebody was loitering. So it's interesting how the general public goes to racism when it's someone involved with the police officer whose race is other than a white person.
Well, and I wonder when I see stories that seem to be focusing on the racial aspect of the case, and I'm not saying there are no justifiable ones, but somehow somebody is trying to make the rest of us think that we're not getting along. That I say to Robin, and I think I told you this last time, Cece, we broadcast from the mall. And so we see young people walking hand in hand. They're black and white and holding hands and having children, and I don't see it in our own circle of friends. I don't see it. And so it's like the media is trying, and I'm not sure that I understand why, to make it seem like black is fighting white right now. There's the big race war going on. Wasn't there?
Well, because
Cece, I'm sorry. Wasn't there a news item that said that Russia was actually doing part of that?
Yes. So what is happening, the racial divide keeps the political divide going. Because if the Democrats did not have the whole race thing going, identity politics going, it would really diminish their message today. And I often say that Obama and Michelle are not really telling black people and the world the truth. The truth is In America today, anything is possible, and they are the best example of what is possible. But if they told black people the truth that you can do whatever you choose to do today if you change your habit and have constructive, smart habits, that would negate the Democrat, politicians' message that it's the racist white man keeping you down.
Right. Yes. Oh my gosh. There's this whole thing about white privilege. Can I talk about that just for a second? I think it's a disservice to young black people, and here's why. Because when I was a young white guy, and I was at one time, believe it or not, I was a young white guy, and I remember, having a hard time really making my mark in this world or whatever, and I always blamed it on being young, or I had long hair at the time. I blamed it on having long hair. I blamed it on all these things. And then somewhere along the way, I said, you know what, maybe it's me. Maybe I shouldn't be thinking outside. And I think when you say there's white privilege and you're a black young man or a young woman, and you're not getting that job you really want right away, the white privilege thing makes you believe that you're not making achievements because of that. If I was white, this would happen for me, and I feel like it's a disservice to them.
Well, speaking of privilege, there's white privilege, black privilege, Hispanic privilege, female privilege, male privilege. Every group of races and sexes, we have our privileges. Let's be honest now. And I often say to black people, who are some of the rudest people when you go to businesses? And they're black females. They are so rude, and they get away with it because they are black. And if white people treated me as rudely as some of my own race treat me, we would say, oh, they're racist. So they get away with it more than any other race being rude to people in places of business. But every group has its privileges. Wow. Do you get in trouble for saying things like that? I would. Oh, my gosh. I have to, honestly, usually they go, you know what, Cece? You are right.
Well, I think there is rich privilege. That's what I think. I think all people who are not rich are kind of in the same category, regardless of race or anything else. Although, you know what? There's a part of me that sees it, though. I do see sometimes if I'm talking to somebody who is racist and white and an employer, I can Cece, let me tell you, there really is that part of this big fabric of America too. So it's not that it doesn't exist at all.
Of course, I say to people, I said, who cry racism, they say racism is the biggest problem in America today. I say, take out a piece of paper and write down all the ills in your life that are coming from the racist white man, and read those statements to me. And there isn't anything on the paper. So there's a lot of hot air about all the racism. I'm like, what are you talking about? I just personally don't have those experiences.
Yeah.
The most overt racism I've experienced actually came from a Japanese man who did not want me to move into his property because I was black. And that's another misconception, that the racism is only with the white man against the black man. Asian people are racist. People from India, Pakistan, the Middle East, black people are racist, white people. So everyone has some racism in them, including myself. I think we all do. I feel there are different degrees, but I feel we're all racist, we're all hypocrites, we're all biased, we're all liars. We're all a little bit of everything.
And a lot of it has to do with being strangers. I think whenever I've been a hypocrite too, and whenever that has happened, it's only because I don't know the person, I think once I get to know somebody, everything else disappears. I no longer see the people that are my friends who happen to be a different race than me. I don't even think of them that way anymore once they become friends. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. But when you cry racism, that means I don't have to look at me. You are the problem. I worked with a young woman, and she's all into Black Lives Matter, and she is a terrible employee. However, if you criticize her, it's only because she's black. So she walks around with not a chip on her shoulder, with a brick on her shoulder, because everything negative that happens to her is because she's black. So therefore, she never looks at her performance on her job because it's just her skin color.
That's interesting.
And you also are pointing out about Nike and Colin Kaepernick.
Oh, yeah. Beyond the kneeling with the whole Kaepernick thing, what got me the most was when he wore the socks with the police officers depicted as pigs. Because I know personally that there are just so many wonderful police officers, men and women out there who truly do put their lives on the line. And for Nike to choose someone that divisive with the police departments of the United States did make me feel like they're really about harmony. We have very little news in the media about the protesters working with the police department. And it makes me wonder if people really want harmony with the police, or do they just want to make noise and get attention?
And I think that's what they want. I think the media really has to start widening their lens and start showing the rest of it. I can remember before I moved to Florida, this has got nothing to do with racism or anything. This has to do with the propaganda and the skillful propaganda. And I don't think it was even intentional in this case. But I was living in New York. I knew we were going to move to Florida. In my young mind, 17 years old, I'm picturing beaches and bikinis. Right? Yeah. That's all I'm picturing. That's all I'm thinking about, right? And then I see this article called The Rural South. Right? And it shows pictures of shacks and people walking on dirt roads. And I'm thinking, oh, my God. And it was here. It was this town, the town I moved to.
Yeah, exactly.
And I said, oh, no. There's no beach in sight.
Yeah, I recently read some statistics at Statistica.com that said in 2018, now we're still in 2018 and not 2019 yet, there have been 457 white people killed by the police, 223 black people, 179 Hispanics, 44 other race people, and 84 unknown race people. So where are the videos of those police shootings from the body cams in the media? They only show the shootings of the white police officer shooting the black man.
And Cece, as a police officer, when you hear those stories, I'm sure every single one of them, you look at the circumstances, and I'm sure there's probably some where the police officer was in the wrong. But I think most of them, they were doing what they are trained to do, which is to save lives, including their own.
Yes, absolutely. Even the few police officer shootings that I felt were like not good shootings, I still did not feel though they were based on someone's race or skin color. I just felt like it was some poor policing. And sometimes, the adrenaline gets to go on and make, poor judgments in seconds. However, again, I do not think I haven't actually, in the past, say, 20, 30 years, I'm not aware of any of the shootings that I thought, oh, this person was shot because they were black.
Since Larry pointed out earlier that we do live in a community where everybody tries to get along, do you think that sometimes the leaders of the previous generations is also the root of the problem, like the Al Sharptons and people like that have main opinions like that are still being listened to?
Oh, absolutely. Perfect example. When you do feel that there is police injustice, you don't make it about black people. You make it about police injustice and not about a race. Then that's when you would be more believable to me. But there is power for people like an Al Sharpton to stay in power when you do the race baiting. That's when he's in the media. He's not in the media when he's about bringing all races together the way Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. did.
Right.
His message is division. So it's interesting how, so many Americans say that President Trump is a divider. But however, I think one of the most unifying things that Trump has attempted to do is to at least bring all Americans together when the Pledge of Allegiance is saying, just our national anthem, let's come together. If that's the only thing we as Americans can come together for, that's a huge, big thing.
What was interesting during the primaries for the presidential campaign when Ben Carson was one of the candidates is that as a conservative Republican, he was getting a lot of grief, and and I guess people would give him grief because they don't agree with his politics, but we supported him, and he happens to be African American, and I was astounded that not too long ago we have in our state in Florida, we have two primary candidates running for the governor's office. There's a black guy and a white guy. The black guy is Andrew Gillum, and the white guy is Ron DeSantis.
Yes.
Is that his name?
Yes.
Okay. So I kind of wanted to look at both of them, and I honestly, I can swear on a Bible I don't look at the race. But Gillum, he's the mayor of Tallahassee right now. He wants to tax the corporations, and I always have felt like if you're going to tax the corporations and then give the teachers a raise, then basically what you're doing is taxing the people. So why don't you just tax the people? It trickles down anyway.
Right. Yeah.
So that's my thinking. It has nothing to do with race. But as soon as I said that, when we had a previous, not today, but a different guest, he was all over me for being racist, for not wanting to back him. And it had nothing to do with that. I was supporting any candidate that I agree with. How about that? I'll just put it that way. And it's got nothing to do with race.
Yes, absolutely. But again, people make it about the race. But speaking of Dr. Ben Carson, have you ever thought about that? It's interesting how black people have more respect for gangbangers than they do a black conservative. They don't criticize them publicly, but they would a black conservative who are often educated and hardworking, honest working Americans. They are the ones that are criticized.
Oh, look at the trouble Kanye West is going through right now. Holy mackerel. He's right. He's taking
but yet now it's okay that Snoop Dogg can put out a video with a gun pointed at a character depicted as President Trump and show after President Trump, and Snoop Dogg goes public to ask the Crips to kill Kanye West, and he's still being glorified. He's getting TV opportunities in television.
Oh my gosh, I didn't know that.
Isn't that interesting? Oh yes, isn't that interesting?
Oh,
it's very interesting.
That is so disappointing.
Very interesting. I think people.
Yes,
but I think what you bring out in your book, though, people like to be against something more than they want to be for something, and they try all they can to just destroy whatever is good just for 15 minutes of fame.
Absolutely, at whatever cost. Now, it depends on what you are getting the fame for. When a few years back, when George Bush was president, you remember when Kanye West publicly said George Bush doesn't care about black people?
Yeah.
They loved him. Then, but now here's a white president who Kanye West is attempting to say may care about black people, and they hate him. Yeah, and I tell black people all the time. I say to them, we have an opportunity here. I said, if your boss was the biggest racist bigot on the planet, asked you to come to his or her office to discuss maybe giving you a raise and helping the conditions in your department, would you say, I'm not going to have a conversation with you because you're racist and you're sexist? No, you go and you have the conversation, and you get what you can get. So I feel black people have an awesome opportunity under President Trump to get some more job opportunities going in their communities and some programs and some incentives that will really help them. We finally have a black president who appears to care about the inner city. But no, we're not going to talk to him because he's a racist.
The book is called Trump, Divine Intervention or Not, How Today's Political Shakeup is Forcing All Americans to See Their Own Hypocrisy. Cece Ferrari is our guest, and I have a copy of her book. If you would like the copy that was sent to us, call me. I will leave it here for you. You can come pick it up. I wanted to ask you if you have a website. I know it's on Amazon, but do you have a website you can recommend?
Yes, I do. It's ccferrari.com.
Easy enough.
And you're having a Trump letter contest on your website.
Yes, my next book is called Trump, My Letter to President Trump, Letters from Citizens Taking Action to Help Make America Great Again. The best form of protesting is more random acts of kindness. And I travel often, and I see protesters all over the United States. They're so angry and mad. And I'm like, wow, they'll spend hundreds of thousands of dollars for an airplane ticket to go across country to protest. But I notice they don't say good morning, hello to the airline staff and people at restaurants. They're so angry. They have forgotten the simple random act of kindness, saying good morning, hello, please, may I, and thank you. And I would like to ask the protesters, when they put their signs down, what are they doing to be of service? See, the modern day protesters are not like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was.
Yeah,
he was about harmony and truly bringing people together of all races and not going around with F this person, F this on a sign. No, no, no. So these are people looking for attention and oh, look at me on social media.
Well, you are certainly a wonderful speaker. Thank you, CC Ferrari, for being on the show with us today. And come back anytime. If you happen to be in Florida, come into the studio. We'd love to have you in the studio.
I will. It is always a joy, the two of you. Thank you again.
Thank you, CC. We'll be right back.
We've been fighting the war on drugs for a long time. We answer the phone 24/7, 365 days a year. On a busy night, we answer hundreds of calls. This war on drugs needs our intervention.